Hey, what's up guys? Christian Awajo here doing my first tier list video. Yeah, this is my thoughts about the current meta and thoughts leading up to YCS Indy and just kind of the format in general until we get the next couple sets. Again, this is my tier list, so I'm gonna be a little bit biased. Obviously, it's just what I think is the best deck, not what is the current best deck or what you should be playing or what, how to build your deck. Um, But yeah, if you guys like this type of video in the future, make sure to comment down below what you guys want to see next, whether it's like a tier list on hand traps, board breakers, or kind of just anything, honestly. But yeah, let's get started. Runic, Sprite, Evil Twin. This is a deck that's probably going to be very similar to all the other Runic decks. Just has an issue with going second, like all the other Runic decks, all the other Runic decks do, just because not a lot of non-engine. So I'd lean towards putting them very low, probably like B. Yeah, I'll probably put all the index here unless there's something different that they do specifically, just because they have a very strong issue going second specifically. Obviously they're very good at going first. Both of these decks, specifically Evil Twin and the For Hire version, I think if they go first uninterrupted or even interrupted, they can still end on a pretty good board. So that's why they're B and they're not G or C, because if they go first and they're probably gonna win, it's just really strong. It's just really hard to go second. That's the issue. Gold Pride Punk. This is a deck that's unlike Runic, for hire and stuff like that. It's not as resilient versus hand traps, so I'd have to put it down a couple ranks just because it is a very explosive deck. So once it gets going, it's very powerful. It just has issues with hand traps, which these decks have issues with hand traps, but they can play through them. And this deck is just not a very real deck. So, Branded Chimera. I think I have to put all the Branded decks kind of towards A, because it meets two of the checkpoints. Very good going first, obviously, besides when you get Astral Branded Fusion or Mirror Sword Knight, in the Chimera version specifically. But it has a very good going second. You can play the Polymerization. Guardian Chimera is an insane card. You can play all the broken going second cards like Talons, Thrusts, and those cards. The reason why it's not S tier obviously is because it has issues going first and going second, obviously still, because you have Ash Blossom, is such a very powerful card that your opponent's going to see 33% of the time. So I'd have to put that in A tier, not S tier, and not obviously not B tier, because it's very good at going first and second, not just one of the two. Swordsoul. This deck is, in my opinion, worse than Runic's. Runic's even like worse than the For Hire or Evil Twin version. So I have to put it kind of towards C, just because this deck is a 2-card combo deck. It's not a 1-card combo deck. Unless you start with specifically Emergence, and even then that combo is not very good. But a lot of the time you're gonna go like Summon Way, reveal Tenyi, they stop it, and if you reveal like Tai or something is really bad, and then you're gonna have to go like Longwan, and now you don't have Baron, so if your opponent has Nibiru, you auto lose, and a lot of decks are playing like 3 Nibirus, so it's very difficult to play this deck right now. Even with Protoss coming back now, it's a little boost, but has done nothing in the meta, and I don't think it's going to be a deck that you should really prepare for. Adventure Synchron. This is probably very similar to the Gold Punk deck. Very powerful going first when it resolves. A little inconsistent, which I should probably also mention in these decks. These are pretty consistent decks too. So, but this is like a very inconsistent deck. Very explosive, but very inconsistent. Terrible going second, because it doesn't play a lot of non-engine, and the non-engine that it does play is not very impactful. Yeah, so probably G tier just because it's not very good. Snake Eyes. I'm assuming this is a pure version. I have to put in S tier. This is just the best deck right now. Yeah, I can't like, I don't even know if I should explain too much about this deck. It's won every tournament. I think it's won the last 7 tournaments. It's obviously different versions like Cash and stuff, but I think this was one like 6 of the 7 YCSs, so it just meets all the checkpoints. 1-card starters, good non-engine, play like 15 and 17 non-engine. Good extenders, Bonfire, Witch, Wanted, that are also starters. Could play Crossout, which is very good this format because every deck has to play hand traps. I think this is just the best deck, and it's definitely S tier for a reason. Altergeist, I'd probably put it C or B tier. I'm leaning towards C just because the interruptions aren't the craziest. They actually lose this to Nibiru, weirdly enough, which is kind of funny. Joel Opera's really against this deck, which is being played. So it's like a weird combo deck it's a 2-card combo deck that's not very good. kind of similar to swordsoul, where you need 2 cards to kind of play, and the end result's not really what you want. So I'd probably put C tier. I think I'd put it above these because you can play more non-engine. And there's trap cards, obviously, that's very good, because when you go first, you have like Scodrans and Rivalries. You can play all these floodgates, so it meets a couple of checkpoints, but it doesn't meet all the checkpoints to make it to an S tier deck. Diablo Rescue Ace. Rescue Ace in general, I think, is very weak because it has to play so many bricks. Not a super consistent deck. Obviously, you have a lot of starters, but not like extenders, if that makes sense. Like, you have a lot of ways to hydrant, but you don't have a lot of ways to play after that. So I would probably lean towards B tier. You could argue for A tier because, I mean, obviously resolving turbulence is game, but you have to play a lot of bricks, and the extenders aren't the greatest. And even the main monsters are not that good either. Like, I don't want to draw Preventer. I don't want to really draw Turbulence unless I'm already playing, so just very weird. Yeah, probably lean towards B. Maybe towards A, below A. Obviously, if they resolve Turbulence is really good, so. Super Heavy Samurai. I wouldn't really make this a deck. I think it's more of like an engine. You can put in like Centurion and stuff. So I'd probably lean. As a deck itself, it's G tier because this deck's terrible. But as an engine, I think it'd be like C or B because it is a very strong engine of Centurion, and I'm sure other decks can probably splash it in. But yeah, I don't have too much to say about Super Heavy Samurai period because it's just not a real deck. Branded Despia, again with Branded Chimera, I have to put it A tier. It's just very solid deck. Like, again, like I said before about the Branded Chimera deck, meets all the checkpoints. Good going first, good going second. Has a couple issues with hand traps, but honestly, way better than all the other decks when it comes to going first or second. So I'd have to put it A tier. Dinosaur, this is another like not very good deck. Just not the time for it. Maybe in the future, maybe when Miscellaneous goes to 3 or something. But I think right now this deck's not very good, and I haven't seen anyone really play it. So I'd have to put it in G tier. Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul is actually not the worst deck. I'd probably put it somewhere in B tier, just because it also has consistency issues. A lot of people playing a lot of hand traps, so if they stop your rosin and you don't have a way to chain to it, you're gonna be cut off at engine. It's very sus. I think it's a very solid pick. I mean, it's not the worst deck to play. I'd play this over a lot of other decks. I'd probably do something like this. I'd probably play Vanquish Soul over a Runic deck. That's not saying much, but it plays non-engine. Doesn't play a lot of non-engine, but it can play Shifter, which is a huge thing. Which a lot of these other decks don't really play Shifter. This is like the first one I think we've seen, and that deck, I mean, yeah, Shifter's obviously really good. So I mean, somewhere in B tier, I'd say. Purely. Yeah, this deck's very weird in the meta. It gets hit by all the hand traps unless you draw the field spell. It struggles going second really because IP into SP is like the most generic thing your opponents are gonna end on. So having a weird matchup when your opponent's gonna end on pretty much the same thing every round is a little weird. But this deck's really good at going first, like really good at going first. Going second, it can crack boards and it can play non-engine. So I'd put it at the top of B or very low A, but I think this deck is very solid, and if you play it, I wouldn't like be against it. I think Solomon Grey, I'd probably put towards C tier. This deck just has an Nibiru issue. It's been a thing since the deck came out. It just has problems getting Nibiru. It's also not very great at going second, I don't think, because you have to like be locked into fires all the time, especially with the new guys. It's fine. It's just another deck that you can play hand traps and non-engine. The 1-card starters are very weak to hand traps because the extenders are not that much better either. It's Solomon Great. Not much to say about Solomon Great. Obviously, it's just another old deck. Unchained. This deck has been. Oh, sorry. This deck has been seeing so much more play. I have to talk about it a little bit more because honestly I thought this deck was just a rogue deck. Like, oh, I don't have to worry about this deck at all. But now, like, everyone's just playing this Unchained deck with the Throne of Nightmare and the opening package. It's actually a very scary deck to play against because hand traps are not very good against this deck. So you throw your hand traps at them, they still end on a Caesar or like Soul Rage with Escape, and that's very strong. That's like 4 interruptions. So I think this deck might be A tier, might be A tier, maybe low B. I mean high B, sorry, high B or low A. Which is a recurring theme because obviously not S tier because their one card starters are not as great as the Snake Eye one, but this deck is very scary and I would definitely might have to prepare for it a little bit more. Voiceless Voice. This is an A tier deck. This has everything you want in a deck. It has starters, it has really good powerful cards, like you can play Prosperity, which almost none of these decks play anymore. I love Prosperity. This deck can play Prosperity, it can play Pre-Prep, it's a +1. Has a lot of good, it has a lot of stuff going for it. The only issue is, sometimes going second, it's very weird to like use your hand traps, and also while you're playing, while your opponent has other stuff going for them as well. There's a reason why I don't like playing this deck. But this deck is very powerful. Like, this is easily one of the top 3 decks of the format. Tier elements. This deck is somewhere between C and G. I love tier elements, but man, this deck is so bad right now. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. It's just gonna hit way too much, and yeah, it's just gonna hit way too much. I'd rather play a better fusion deck than tier element if I were to play a fusion deck. Exosister. This is a G tier deck. Like, this is very similar to swordsoul, where you need 2 cards to play, and when they stop your XYZ, it's just very hard to play. And every deck plays so many hand traps, so playing this deck right now doesn't seem like the greatest idea. The only benefit of this deck, I guess I could put in 2 tier, is because of Dimension Shifter, like the Vanquish Soul deck. Aromage Rika. This deck has been getting popularity as well. Seen Sunsea just play it, and she's making it a little bit more popular in Europe. I'll probably put it in B tier just because the card is very strong. Obviously, you draw the normal summon. You have a lot of extenders. I think it has an issue going second again. I think it's very okay. The only issue is, like, a lot of people play Snake Eye 17 on engine, so if you're playing, you know, a combo deck that gets kind of destroyed by hand traps like Nibiru, Troll, and all these other hand traps, then obviously it's a little tough. But I'd probably put it in the same category as Runics, where they're really good going first and struggle a little bit going second. Pendulum, G tier. Can't go second, so can't really play this deck. Phantom Knight Horus. I don't know why you'd play Phantom Knight cards right now. It doesn't make sense to me. This is not a very good deck. Yeah, I just don't really know why you'd play Phantom Knights right now and Horus cards over literally any of the other choices we have at the moment. Just inconsistencies. The interruptions aren't very good. It doesn't meet any of the checkpoints. It gets destroyed by hand traps. I just don't see why you play this right now. Heroes. I love heroes. It's always like it's a better, like, a high C or low B deck. Yeah, I mean, Dark Law's powerful. Destroyer is good. Has a lot of ways to start playing. How to always go second. It plays droplets. You can play super polys. You can. It's just a very good. It's a rogue deck. I mean, it's heroes. Centurion. I actually think this deck's pretty good. It's probably like high B as well, below A. But this deck needs a lot of checkpoints. 1-card starters, hand traps. I'm actually moving it to A. This deck is a good deck any deck can lose to. It can play Shifter, has multiple hand traps. It just does everything that you want in a deck. Like, has hand traps, Shifter, 1 card, basically FTK if your opponent has out of response, extenders. Yeah, this deck's very good. It plays a couple bricks, but I think all the decks play a couple bricks. But this deck is a solid deck. I do not want to play against it. I think that's also how I rate this category, as a decks that I don't want to play against because they're very good. But Centurion's definitely a very strong deck. Valmonica I can't rate properly because I have not looked into it as much as I would want to. I know people are starting to look into it a little bit more. From, like, just if I had to play against it in a tournament, I'd be very upset because I don't know what the cards do, so I'd have to look into it more. But it's probably B or C because I just don't know what the cards do, unless they're just terrible. Same thing with the Mento Tolan. I don't know what these cards do. I'll probably look into them a little bit more, but try to see what the hype is about on those decks. Skystrike is G tier. Those decks just unplayable. Every deck is so much more powerful and just outpaces it. The Skystrike engine, on the other hand, is decent. Like, I don't think that's bad. But yeah, this deck is just not very good right now. It's kind of like Salad, where it's just way too out of date. Synchro Bestial. I'll probably put this with the other Runic decks. Very good going first. Struggles going second because the Bestials aren't the greatest right now. But obviously Runics are just, the Runic cards can just carry you. So Dynamorphia I'd probably put in G tier. It's a very good going first deck, but terrible going second. Terrible going second. Like, this deck is literally unplayable going second. So that's why it is G tier. Yubel I'd probably put closer to, it's like B or C. It's not as good as Unchained version, I think, because Unchained version can just send on The DD, Wave King Caesar. It's definitely better than Heroes. It's definitely I'd probably put it high B or low B, sorry, because it's better than all these decks. It's an actual real deck. It has combos where it ends on like the rank 10, Soul Rage, Escape. I think any deck with ends on some sort of Unchained board is fine. Same thing like a Labyrinth deck, kind of like any deck that can end on a couple interrupts like that, it's gonna be very good because you can also play non-engine on top of that. So Drytron, it's a C deck, kind of similar to other decks. It needs 2 cards to play, and when your 1 play gets stopped, you're gonna need like another 2 cards to play. So just very awkward. I'll probably put it higher than these decks because I'd rather play against I'd rather play against any of these other decks besides Drytron. I'd probably rather even play against swordsoul over Drytron. Hero is kind of very similar, but yeah. Goblin Biker, this is G tier. This deck just doesn't do anything or enough. Just another rogue deck. I mean, yeah, it doesn't do anything. Magic Spectre is kind of like a pendulum deck, so I'll put it next to the pendulum. Like, it's just a very whatever deck to me. Raid Raptor, this deck's actually scary. I'll probably put it in high C. This deck, if they summon multiple towers, you just can't win. It struggles going second, which is another. This is the thing that it's a very common theme with all these decks. It's just very hard going second because your engine doesn't really trade into boards well. So, Flunderies, this is a B deck. No one wants to play against this deck. This deck can just beat you with Shifter. It can beat you with this engine. It can beat you going second with Dark Rulers, evenly matched. This deck's solid. This is just a solid deck. This deck is always a top like 10 deck. Volcanic, depending on which version, if it has like Snake Eye cards, it's automatically B. If it doesn't have Snake Eye cards, it's probably like C. You're just playing a worse Snake Eye deck, man. Like you're playing all these unnecessary bricks. Like just play Snake Eye. If you're playing straight Volcanics, you should just be playing Snake Eye. Like I don't know. This is just the worst. One of the worst fire decks. Like one of the worst fire decks for sure. Infernoble, obviously with the Soul Dig being banned, a lot worse. There is some room for improvement in this deck. I don't think the people that are playing this deck are playing it to its max potential. So I'd probably put it low C. I think if a lot of good people played it, it'd probably be a little bit better, but it's just not. I don't think it's where it's at right now at the moment. Orcus is probably similar to Swordsoul and all the other decks. Very terrible going second. Even the Skystriker version, which is like arguably the better version of the Orcus deck, is just very hard to go second with because it's not very consistent either, and you have to play all these bricks like World One, Nightmare, Greffer. Like playing Greffer in 2024 is just crazy. Ashen, I haven't looked into. I probably put into Memento of a Monica category, but this deck's been out a little bit longer, I think, so the fact that it hasn't done anything is leading me to believe that it's not very good. Barking Snake Eye, I have to put S tier. It's a little bit worse than a Snake Eye deck, but you still have Snake Ash in your deck, so I have to put you in S tier. Because it has basically all the same cards as Snake Eye, Pure Snake Eye does, but just a little bit more bricky, but super powerful. Goaty, G tier, this deck is Scody. It has issues. I could probably put it with the Runic versions because there's a good Runic version of the deck, but not very big fan. Runic Generator, I actually don't like Runic Generator compared to the other decks. I think this deck is way worse because it has a lot of bricks. I'll probably put it to C tier, but because it has Runic cards, you have to put it in at least to C tier. Labyrinth, I put it in B tier for the memes, but I think this deck is terrible right now. I would not play Labyrinth right now. Your opponent summons Snake Ash. If you don't have impermanence, you lost the game. This deck is not very good. I do not think anyone should be playing this deck right now. It doesn't have a spot in the format at the moment. All these other decks are miles ahead of Labyrinth. Like, if you're playing this deck, I would consider not playing it. Again, these are just my opinions. You can play whatever you want, but I think this deck is not it at the moment. Thunder Dragon, you probably put it at like C or G. This deck is not very good. It's just not that format anymore, and it's just very bricky. And the card quality we have now is just so much better. So playing this deck is just not realistic. Melodious, this deck is really good. I'd probably put it A tier. I'm not sure where here, somewhere in around these four. This deck's very good at going first. Can play non-engine. Has a brand infusion type card that's really strong, so I'd have to put it in A tier. It's just really good. Lightsworn, I'd probably put it kind of somewhere with the Runic decks. I'm assuming it's Lightsworn Runic or something like that. If not, it's probably C tier. It's just very inconsistent. Can play 0 non-engine, so that's really good. Uh, yeah, it just doesn't meet the checkpoints for a really good deck this format, and it's a fun deck, but just does not get you where you want to be. Ragnaraka, I think I'd probably put it closer to the, where did I put the other one at? The Reika deck. Yeah. Because I think these decks kind of go hand in hand together, or the engines go hand in hand together, so I think, yeah, it's probably like a very strong B tier deck. Has the, again, like has the starters, has the extenders, can play non-engine. It's a very solid deck. Tempai Dragon, you'd be trolling not to put it in A tier. This is a very solid deck. It's a lot of the losses and wins are out of your control. It's pretty much just looking at your hand. Yeah, not much to say about this deck. This deck is very powerful and definitely very good. I would not put it as, you could argue to put it S tier, but I think it's not that great compared to Snake Eye. That's just me personally, but I definitely put it on top of these though. It's probably the third best, like the third best deck, unless you consider these each their own deck. So like one of these, so this would be like the top deck. This would probably be the second deck at the moment. Voiceless is probably third, and then these can all kind of like have their own spot in the format. Kashtira, I'd probably put in high B. This deck plays a lot on engine. It plays Shifter, which is obviously auto win against a lot of decks. And yeah, against side deck, all the cards that are good against other decks too. It's just very flexible deck. I think it's fine. Dark World, I think I saw a couple top recently. It's just very inconsistent. Lose to Droll, Shifter, like auto win, like auto lose to Droll and Shifter. So I'd probably put it towards C tier. It can play Skill Drain and stuff, so it's a little bit better than a lot of these rogue decks. I'll probably put it a little bit ahead of Exorcister, ahead of swordsoul. Somewhere here. This deck's very solid, like for rogue deck. Just has a lot of problems for it, obviously, inconsistency issues. The starters aren't really consistent either, they're just very random, and yeah. Dragon Link is probably similar to swordsoul, just not the format for it. Just got really hit a lot in the format with the balance, and I think it's very hard to play at the moment. Trap Tricks, I'd probably put in G tier. A deck that can only go first with trap cards, not very good, so obviously put it in the G tier. Vanadium. This is a deck without Baron. I'm not even too sure how good it is. I haven't played against it since Baron got banned, so I'm not too sure. Before this, I would put it in B tier because I think this deck is really powerful going first, obviously. But without Baron and stuff, I'm maybe leaning towards C tier. I could put it at the top of C, just because this deck can still do probably amazing things. It can probably still calamities, lock you in, and on counter traps. So I'll probably put it in B tier. This is just a very solid. That's a solid deck. Virtual World, G tier. I haven't seen this deck in forever. This is just not it, obviously, for decks. It needs a lot of 2-card combos. People starting to play Bell again. That's a little bit worse. Shifter, B2, Droll's not. Droll's, you don't want to see you get Droll, but you can play a little bit around it. It's not a very good deck right now. I'll probably stay away from it. Marine Cess. This deck kind of meets a lot of the checkpoints. 1-card starters, extenders, hand traps. Just does everything. A decent end board, strong enough end board to kill him the following turn. So I think this deck's very fine. Probably like a B, maybe high C, low B. But yeah, this is my tier list for the upcoming format, YCS Indie and regionals and stuff like that. If you like these videos, make sure to comment, like, subscribe. I'll try to do more of these in the future. I'm going to do like tier lists like for board breakers, hand traps, or if you guys have like a specific format or any deck idea or anything like that you guys want me to do, leave a comment down below and I'll try to get that for you guys. But yeah, thanks again. Peace.